We have Kirk Cameron with us today. We're going to be pulling the sheets back, the curtain and the veil back upon what's happening with the cartoon industry, Hollywood, and how it's invading your household and going after your children. We're also going to talk about the big spiritual comeback that he's seeing happening in America right in this period of awakening. And I couldn't be more enthusiastic about a book than the book that he's going to be talking about that gives real illustrations about real Christians in history and in time that can inspire you to taking action right now. And because of that, I'm encouraging you all to get a hold of this Slingshot series right now. We need a slingshot. I was listening to Rescue the Republic, which is, Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand and Brett Weinstein. And my gosh, I don't know. There was a who's who in Washington, D.C. summoning. RFK Jr. was there. I think maybe Elon. I don't know. But it was like a gathering of the dangerous conservative thought leaders that are unifying around saving America. And you know what they opened with? That we're up against a giant Goliath that is trying to take us out. And the movement is a corporate David. And this came from the secular guys. It's time that we found the slingshot. This is the teaching that'll help you take the strategy God gives you to be able to deal with the giant that is holding you back from where you're going. Get a hold of the Slingshot strategy at lancewallnau.com/slingshot. Go to 800-910-6349. How much is it, Brother Lance? That's the amazing thing. Your gift of any amount. You can get a hold of it. lancewallnau.com/slingshot. This is my consulting strategy for how you get to the top of the situation, sphere, or mountain God called you to. Call 800-910-6349. Go there right now as we get into the new TV series, the new book, the new cartoons or adventures that is coming out of Kirk Cameron's copious brain and creativity. Let's get right into it right now. Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. Well, we're back from our Courage Tour in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you haven't been watching the news lately, that's good for me. I can't believe that the secular media would be so fascinated by what we have to say on this program that they hunt for a soundbite that they could associate with the national campaign. But you know what? Whether for good or for evil, I'm just happy that Jesus is getting a message out there. Mercedes, you're on the show with us today, and you've been following with our guest today, Kirk Cameron.
Oh, I grew up watching Kirk, so yes, I'm familiar. And my favorite is this TikTok I saw of him where he was describing the Founding Fathers statue, largest granite statue. And anyway, it's just fascinating. We won't probably be talking about that today, but that's my most recent
you were telling me about it before we had the show. I want to bring Kirk on immediately. Most of you know who he is. If you don't, you need to meet him. He is an ubiquitous presence in the space of, I guess, advocating for a change in Christian America. Welcome, Kirk. Glad to have you with us today.
Thanks, Lance. Mercedes, great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me on the show. I watch you and appreciate so many of the things that I learn, whether it's from a meme on your social media or your whiteboarding skills. I think, we talk about the 5 love languages from that book, 5 Love Languages. I think there's a 6th, and it's whiteboarding, and Lance does it so well. Thank you for all that you're teaching us.
The ubiquitous whiteboard, and what's strange is I've even had people bring them into restaurants and things like that, thinking that if I'm going to talk to someone, I need a whiteboard. I actually had that happen. It was kind of an embarrassment. Now let me ask you a question, Kirk. You're well known for several reasons, but one of the ones that's interesting to me is, let's just catch up on something. I first started tracking with you in the media, apart from personally, when you were doing the library work. And just catch people up here, because we have some folks here that are maybe not familiar with this, but you were really pioneering something. What were you doing in the library that was creating such a news frenzy?
I was trying to read children's books about love, kindness, self-control, and faithfulness. And after I wrote my first children's book about the fruit of the Spirit, I wanted to go read it at a story hour like so many other groups are doing, and I was denied by over 50 woke libraries that had previously held drag queen story hours for children. So maybe if I had shown up in some fishnet stockings, a miniskirt, and some heels, they would have welcomed me with open arms. But instead, they said, no, our values don't align with yours. You're not really going to be welcomed here. So I pushed back, went on Tucker Carlson's show and said, this is unconstitutional. I'll see you in court. they reversed course, and we showed up and were greeted by over 3,000 parents and grandparents at these downtown public libraries all across the nation. The response was huge in Washington, D.C., and New York, and L.A., and Phoenix, all over the place. So I've continued to write books for children, and now we've graduated into the world of children's programming, and we're animating these stories about humility and courage and bravery, love and kindness, and adding puppets from Jim Henson's Muppets, and bringing in former stars from Disney television programs to redeem children's programming away from the stuff that they are getting from Disney and Nickelodeon, which is all infected by the woke mind virus. All the books that are coming out for kids to read today that are being tucked into the shelves of public libraries from Scholastic is all of this gender-bending, mind-confusing stuff that parents are livid about. And what we need to do is stop being professional complainers and start creating the materials and building the world we want our kids to live in. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, let's slow down for folks right now and zero in on what you just said. The major networks that have like Nickelodeon and Blue's Clues and stuff like that. So I've got friends of mine in Hollywood and the animation field who had to leave, and they didn't want to have their careers destroyed, so they didn't want to make a big stink on the way out. But the reason why they were leaving was they were being required to include in their cartoons the proselytizing of children with gay, queer, and other gender crazy cartoon characters, so that and parents, that would be like a gay couple, and trying to do the best they could in the Nickelodeon and like Blue's Clues area to try to make this seem like this is so normal. The kids are singing songs about this. And what I think they were picking up on is something which the average American needs to wake up on, and that is that this isn't just an activist agenda for adults to be who they want to be. This is a proselytizing agenda to convert your children to a way of thinking that is contrary to your own values. And do you think that I'm misstating the situation, or is that pretty much what it is?
No, it's right in the bullseye. That's exactly what's happening. Lance, I want to paint this in maybe a different light, and this might be a wake-up call for us. Listen, all that they're doing, those who are part of the Purple Hair Platoon, those that are part of the Rainbow Mafia, and I'm not talking about people who want to live their private life the way that they want to live it. I'm talking about the militant proselytizers who are coming in and they're coming after your children. Really, all that they're doing, they're just picking up our playbook. They're picking up Deuteronomy chapter 6, and they're saying, wait a minute, why don't we just train up their children in the way that we want them to go? How about we just tell them the stories and give them the values when they sit in their homes, not their homes, in our homes. When our children sit in our homes, when they walk along the way, when they get put down to sleep at night, and when they rise up in the morning, we will tell them the stories. We will give them the values through screens and tablets and books and TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat. And as long as parents continue to outsource their parenting and their education to public schools that have been thoroughly hijacked by Marxism and by secular humanism, we are effectively allowing them to evangelize and disciple our children. And it's all happening on our watch, and we're paying them to do it through our taxes. Lance, you're the pro at all of this stuff. I mean, I'm the junior student talking to the guy who teaches the classes on this, and it's a brilliant strategy, and they pulled it straight out of the Bible, and they're running our own plays better than we are.
So when you have this show, which is called Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk, will people be able to get a hold of it anywhere, everywhere? Our audience needs to have these healthy resources, because I think our people, 30 million of them, are actually aware of the fact that there is an intentional attack on their kids and their future. Right. So now we have to kind of like quarantine and kind of like protect ourselves. Where do they find your material?
So you can find Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk everywhere. It's going to be free streaming on all platforms this fall. Think Thanksgiving time. It's a modernized version of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, teaching biblical traditional, pro-American, pro-constitutional values. And if you want to find out more specifics on how you can be involved, how you can get some of these books to read to your children before the TV show comes out, so they're familiar with the characters, they're familiar with the world of Freedom Island, where the show takes place, you could go to bravebooks.com and you can start reading these things to your kids. I've written 3 of those books, one about the fruit of the Spirit, one about humility contra pride, and then one about loving your enemies. But there's all kinds of books, warning your children about the dangers of critical race theory and social communism, and gender identity from God's perspective is a good thing for your 5-year-olds to begin to learn about. Because if we don't teach them the right way, Disney will teach them the wrong way.
Profound and true. Now, I want to get into your material for us, the adult community. You've done a great job with the Children's Hour in the library and cartoons. But you have something to say to the parents as well. And I think you're tapping into the zeitgeist of the moment in America. There's a wind that is shifting something, and it's necessary. So. It's an awakening, I think, is beginning to take hold. And you're writing at exactly the right time. Talk to me about your latest contribution.
Well, Lance, I travel around the country a lot, and I speak in public libraries and churches and schools, and I talk to elected representatives in our country, and I find that there is a note of discouragement and even inching toward the cliff of despair with a lot of people, even within the family of faith. The people who should have the most amount of hope because we have the promises of God are beginning to say things like, I think we may have crossed the line and this may be the end. And for those who want to throw an eschatological spin on it, they even get into this point of saying, why polish brass on the sinking ship? This whole thing is going down the drain, and it is supposed to. And I say, hold on. We have had things called great awakenings in this country. We have had revivals all throughout history as we look at the history, the heroes of history. What if this current cultural setback is really a divine setup for a spiritual comeback led by the family of faith? What if this is the perfect opportunity where people see the current zeitgeist and the current worldview being sold to people is going to end in a great big cultural dumpster fire? And what we need to get back to is the thing that led to the greatest country on earth, which is biblical constitutional values, and beginning to restore the family, restore fidelity to scriptures within the church, and applying God's word and gospel truths to transform everything, including civil government. That's what my book is all about. It's a battle plan, a personal manual on how you can begin to do that yourself.
I think you're putting your finger on something which needs to be said, and I pray that it really hits the audience of people that are people of faith, that they think that it's a sign of spiritual enlightenment to be kind of like, well, it doesn't make a difference what you do. And they default to the elections are all going to be, manipulated, and you're not going to have a free election. Or they default to it's all going to go down and we're in the end times. But what you're saying is Noah had to build that ark, and he had to build it if even only his family got saved. At least his family got saved. And he stood before God, having been obedient, doing what he was called to do. The people that talk in the language of eschatological fatalism are actually, in a sense, cowards. Because what they're really saying is, I don't want to put myself out there where I'm going to have inconvenience, pain, and warfare fighting for righteousness when I think I can get away with saying I didn't have to because I can't win anyway. We're going to be right back with Kirk Cameron. You don't want to miss the examples he's going to give you in when we come right back. Thank you. We're living in an age where Christians are nervous. Christians are waffling in their commitment. Preachers aren't really preaching a clear message. We don't know if we're raptured out or if we're supposed to go to the voting booth and take a stand. The truth of the matter is, all that confusion dissipates when you get a fresh revelation of Jesus. God wants to give the church a fresh discovery of who Jesus is, because Jesus actually manifests himself in different ways in different periods of time. When he first came, John the Baptist was very confused. He had seen the Lord coming with a baptism of fire, and he was going to burn up the chaff, and he was going to shake things up. And Jesus actually came as a sacrifice. Well, end time Jesus is coming back as the judge of nations, and most Christians are looking for the Lamb. He's coming as a lion. Now, if you get this revelation of who Jesus is right now, it doesn't dissipate the beauty of his merciful forgiveness or his love. It just adds this realization that he's coming with authority, and he wants his church to straighten up its back and begin to realize that the soon coming king is coming as the judge of nations. The revelation of end time Jesus will put a mantle in your life that will embolden you with clarity and confidence, the thing that is missing most in the body of Christ, the fear of the Lord and the boldness of the first century church is about to come to you with this powerful revelation. Go to lancewallnau.com, End Times Jesus. That's lancewallnau.com/End Times Jesus. And you're going to hear this explosive, fresh, new revelation that just came to me recently this year, that God wants the church to straighten up and strengthen itself because Jesus is coming with the armies of heaven, and he's coming to do battle. We're coming back right now with Kirk Cameron, who is announcing a new nonfiction book called Born to be Brave, about a spiritual comeback. I'm so inspired by your language, Kirk, because you're talking about something that's happening now. And there's very few shows that use the word zeitgeist twice. And that makes it very important to me because we're having a more refined 30,000-foot conversation of what's happening in America. This weekend in Washington, D.C., Jordan Peterson and Brent Weinstein and Tulsi Gabbard and Russell Brand. And it was a gathering, a star-studded gathering of conservative-oriented thought leaders and influencers, including RFK Jr., all of them gathering and saying, it takes courage to be here because so many of us are intimidated about being in public, about being in Washington. And they were literally saying it requires courage and clarity to reclaim the country. And these are not even the evangelical leaders who are kind of in the sidelines to a great extent. These are the secular leaders that are saying we must fight for the preservation of America, that in the story of the evolution of nations, they're like human beings. You get old. And when you get old, you get vulnerable and you get feeble. But you also have children. And when you commit to them the important lessons, the next generation rises up. America needs now to commit its lessons to the next generation so that it can sustain itself. And I think that's perfectly in line with what you as an actor, author, and producer are trying to do with Born to be Brave. Is that correct?
Wow, man. Pass the offering plate. Lance, we're having church now, and I love this. This is the kind of preaching that we need to hear from our pulpits, not just Greek studies on something that happened in Leviticus. I'm all for it, but the application of gospel truths and scriptural promises to the cultural situations we're in today is what we need. Man, I got so many things that I want to say. We've got to put an end to cowardly conservative Christians sitting on their couch, watching Fox News, crying in their Chick-fil-A soup, feeling sorry for their grandchildren, hoping for the rapture. Let's get off that program, and let's take a lesson from David, who saw all of his brothers when they were in battle against the Philistines, and they bring out Goliath and say, okay, who you got? And all of them are shaking in their boots, except for the young man David, who runs out there and he's going to take him on. And what he understood was what all his brothers forgot. And that is that Goliath was not the giant, that there was someone so much bigger than Goliath, it made Goliath look like a midget. And he let loose on that stone with that slingshot, connects with a forehead, and the rest is history. And all of his courage transferred to his brothers, and the army was on the attack. What I want to do is to inspire people with true stories, both in history and today, of people who did brave, courageous things because they loved God, trusted his promises, and they had compassion for people. That's where we need to be right now.
I'm inspired by that. Born to be Brave. By the way, Mercedes, where can they get Born to be Brave?
At Brave Books. I'm assuming in Kirk, let me know. Is it
do we have
bravebooks.com? I'm thinking it's going to be something like that. LanceWallnau.com/Kirk. Thank you, team in the back.
This is your moment. This is what you're supposed to say.
I was getting ready a question. You were like, you need to ask a question. I have a question. And that's why I was raising my hand. I was like, I have a question.
So we're going to go to Mercedes' question, but I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/Kirk. LanceWallnau.com/Kirk. You say, why go there? Well, that way we can connect with you and we can get Kirk back on and we can have our audience all on the same page.
Yeah.
Now, LanceWallnau.com/Kirk is where they go. Mercedes, your question.
How did you get to this, where you're at now with America's in crisis? The church has got to wake up. You're such a breath of fresh air because kind of like you, we hang out with a lot of people. You're sitting there crying into their Chick-fil-A. And you're like, no, like America's got a destiny. I have kids. I want my children to have children. Like, let's not give up in this moment. So my question is, because I think everybody's kind of like myself, like this is my first time talking to you. I've kind of seen you evolve publicly, right? From the time you're a kid to the time you're really into like street evangelism. And now, you're just on this whole journey. But what inside of you changed from just that Christian that's like, hey, yeah, love people, let's evangelize. And now it's like, no, but there's a faith plus works that we have to be involved with cultural issues. We have to be speaking on these things. We have to be voting. How did you get there? What was your aha?
I have a friend who has gone on to be with the Lord. He's part of the great cloud of witnesses now with so many of our heroes from history, who taught me that, Kirk, the gospel's been truncated and it's been put in a tiny little box by for whatever reason, pietists, whatever we want to call them, that doesn't allow it to be like the leaven that leavens the whole lump in a good way, that doesn't allow the gospel and its transformative power to move beyond a person's own salvation. That's not the way that Christians used to look at things. And he would talk to me about heroes of the past who saw the gospel as having victory written all over it, and that the blessing of the gospel would flow as far as the curse is found, not just to my heart and get my kids saved so you can get us out of here and take us to heaven. I love that quote by N.T. Wright, the theologian, who said, the gospel is God's new plan, not to get us from earth to heaven, but to colonize earth with the life of heaven.
Amen.
I thought, whoa, wait a second. That's a new concept for me, but it's not for the family of faith. When you talk about the Pilgrims who came out of unbelievably difficult times with a king of England who calls himself essentially God on earth and in charge of the church. So you got government and church in bed with each other, led by the same guy. And you don't even have the right to read a Bible, and they get on a little wine ship, cross the Atlantic Ocean with some chickens and a Bible, and start the greatest nation on earth. That's inspiring. That's a little different than the mini missions that churches give men today, to be nice to your wife, stay away from pornography, and by the way, set up the church chairs for the bake sale this weekend and get ready for the rapture. That doesn't inspire your inner Braveheart, does it, Lance? Let's give men a mission and women a mission to heavenize the earth by applying true principles, first in our hearts, then in our homes, in our communities, and the nation.
Powerful truth. Now, can you give me an example? Tell me something from the book. I think, do you cover the Pilgrim Journey here? Give us a sample of what's in that book that is emblematic of courage or Christian activism that we could draw from for today.
I love the story of St. Patrick, an English 16-year-old who was enslaved by the pagans in Ireland. And he was taken over there, and he finally escaped, and he goes back because of his Christian upbringing to the very place that enslaved him and converts the whole nation of Ireland. There's the story of King Alfred, who defeats the Vikings, and he ends up transforming the whole kingdom. And then all the way up until today, we have the Pilgrims, we have the founding fathers who were reformers as well. They weren't just reporters talking about bad things. They reformed bad things by providing godly, heavenly alternatives. Riley Gaines today is somebody that is standing up for righteousness in the public square, and her particular field of expertise is women's sports. And so when she was beat by or at least tied with a mediocre biological male in her swim match, she stood up and said, this is wrong. This is just de-dignifying women. This is destroying women's sports. And she is now traveling all over, speaking everywhere, inspiring a nation full of people to stand for righteousness. Moms and dads across the country beginning to take back the leadership role in their children's education. Men who are beginning to take back what it means to be masculine in this country and not letting pagans and a secular media and culture raise your children for you and turn men into mice. This is happening everywhere, and I'm personally inspired by it. And I know these stories are going to inspire others as well.
Wow. I never knew that. So Prince Alfred you talked about, you were throwing out these historic, huh?
Yeah, King Alfred of Wessex.
Of Essex. Now, this is the kind of history that I don't think I ever learned when I was, maybe I was not paying attention.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of this.
That's right. And Saint Nicholas and all he did to defend the divinity of Christ and in the past, there are so many, but William Wilberforce and so many of the reformers. This is a spirit that dwells in the chests of men who want to go and change their world for the honor of God and the flourishing of humanity, because they understand that the gospel is a totalizing force for the good of everyone. That's why everyone tries to come to this country, whether they're a Christian or not. More opportunity, more freedom, more prosperity. And all of that is dependent upon a biblical philosophy of life. Our founders understood it. And that's why we've got to get back to these things. And nobody else can do it but the family of faith.
You want to go to lancewallnau.com/Kirk. This is, if you're inspired right now, you will be doubly inspired reading this book. I can't wait to read it myself because I'm a history buff. And this whole idea, this quote from N.T. Wright, colonizing the earth with the culture of heaven. Folks, we only got 57 seconds left, but the word apostolos, literally in its origin, means the lead ship in an armada that colonized countries. And we're talking about colonizing earth with heaven, bringing heaven to earth, not trying to get people out of earth into heaven. What a powerful reversal. Kirk Cameron, in other ways, how can we keep in touch with you? I'm pushing the book, but can people follow you on social media? Where do they go?
Yeah, you can go to my website, kirkcameron.com, but I'm doing something every Sunday and Wednesday live called the American Campfire Revival from my backyard, teaching through this book. You can find me on my YouTube channel, my Facebook channel, X, Rumble, all that stuff. Just check out American Campfire Revival.
Well, we're going to have him on again, ladies and gentlemen. Kirk Cameron. This is a guy who produces cultural impact because he packages it. I want everyone to follow that advice. All right, well, we're going to have to end this segment right here. I can't believe the time is over. God bless you all. We're going to be back again tomorrow with another special broadcast you don't want to miss. See you then.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world